Hello. Today what we're going to do is go back and review some special right triangle stuff from geometry, and then we're going to incorporate it into our bike wheel problem. And I don't know if you've ever done an Ed puzzle before. So you're on this platform called Ed Puzzle. What's going to happen is the video is going to stop at designated times, and you're going to see a question pop up on your screen. And then you're going to answer that question before you move on to watching more of the video. Now, I think, I'm not sure because it's kind of my first time using Edpuzzle. I think it like gives you a score maybe. I'm not looking at these scores. I'm really just looking at what you're answering, so I know what to address when we meet in class. So don't worry about any scores that you're receiving. You can totally ignore that. Okay. All right. So we are going to start by talking about 45, 45, 90-degree triangles. And I know you learned about these in geometry. So just a refresher, a 45, 45, 90-degree triangle is a triangle whose angles are 45 degrees, 45 degrees, and 90 degrees. And because it has two congruent angles, it's an isosceles triangle, which means the legs of the triangles are the same length. So these are both some length, let's call it x. And then you can use Pythagorean theorem to get the hypotenuse, or you can remember the ratios of a 45, 45, 90, and this is x root 2. So for example, let's say that we had a 45, 45, 90-degree triangle, and if I just mark the legs as congruent, and it's a right angle, we know that has to be 45, 45, 90. And let's say that this was 3. Then using our ratios in our triangle, we know that the other leg is 3, and then we know the hypotenuse is 3 root 2. So this would be 3 root 2. Let's do another example. So now let's say, for example, let's orient this triangle a little bit differently for some variety here. Let's say that we knew the hypotenuse was 7 root 2. Now, since 7 root 2 corresponds to the x root 2 side, we know that, how long are the other two sides of your triangle? All right, so these two sides are x, and so our x would be 7, and the legs are 7. All right, let's do another example. Let's do one that's a little bit more interesting, shall we say. So let's say, for example, in our 45, 45, 90, that the hypotenuse is 20. Now notice that 20 is the hypotenuse, and that corresponds to the x root 2 side. It doesn't have a root 2 in it, but there's nothing wrong about that. So 20 is the x root 2 side. We'll even write the equation 20 equals x root 2. X root. Okay. And we want to find the legs. So what we want to do is we want to solve that equation. So if we take 20 equals x root 2 and we solve, we can divide both sides by root 2. And on the right-hand side, we're left with x. And on the left-hand side, we're left with 20 divided by root 2. Now, you can leave your answers 20 divided by root 2, but we like to rationalize. And so to rationalize the denominator, that means to get rid of the root in the denominator. And we can do that by multiplying the top and bottom by that root. So we're going to multiply the top and bottom both by root 2. Okay, you're allowed to do that. Whatever you do to the top of a fraction, if you do the same thing to the bottom, that is legitimate. All right, so this becomes 20 root 2. And root 2 times root 2 is root 4. And root 4 is just 2. And then because these numbers both exist outside of your root, you can divide them, and we get 10 root 2. And so the legs are each 10 root 2 and 10 root 2. And you can check, because the hypotenuse is always a leg times root 2. So if you take a leg, 10 root 2, and multiply it by root 2, that becomes 10 root 4, which is 10 times 2, which is 20, and that is the hypotenuse. All right, so let me make one up for you to try. Let's take our triangle, and let's say that the hypotenuse is now, let's do 16. So what are the legs of your triangle? You could write the equation. 16 is the x root 2 side, but it's the hypotenuse. So you can write the equation 16 equals x root 2. And you can solve the equation by dividing by root 2. So 16 divided by root 2 equals x. And then you can rationalize by multiplying the top and bottom by root 2. And that becomes 16 root 2 divided by root 4, also known as 2. And then the 16 and 2 can be simplified further, and that's 8 root 2. So the legs are 8 root 2. And if you notice, there's kind of a pattern or shortcut here. If you know the hypotenuse, divide it by 2, and then multiply it by root 2 to get the leg. So the hypotenuse divided by 2 times root 2 equals the leg. So let's just do one more here. Let's say that your hypotenuse is 15. What do you think the legs are? Use the shortcut. Oops, 45, 45. All right, so if we're using the shortcut, divide it by 2, so that's 7.5, multiply it by root 2, and those are your legs. And you can always check because the hypotenuse is equal to a leg times root 2. So if we take the leg and multiply it by root 2, we get 7.5 times 2, and that gives you 15. All right, so what does this have to do with the bike wheel? Let's go to our wheel problem here. We're going to use the same dimensions as last time. So we have this wheel. It has a diameter of 6 inches. It takes 24 seconds for it to go around one time. And we want to find the height of the gum at these 3 various times. So we want to find the height of the gum at t equals 9, at t equals 21, and at t equals 42. All right, so the first thing we want to do, always for every math problem ever, is to draw a picture. Okay? And then let's put some important information on our picture. So I'm going to put some key times around here. We know that it takes 24 seconds for the wheel to go around one time. So let's mark these times on here. And what do you think the times are going to be at these quarter circles? Here's the center. Right, so here's t equals 0. If you take 24 and divide it by 4, that's 6. So it's going to be 6 seconds as we go around. So this is 6 equals 6. Add 6 more, this is t equals 12. Add 6 more, this is t equals 18. Add 6 more, and you're back at the bottom here, t equals 24. Okay. Now we want to find the height of the gum at t equals 9. So t equals 9 is exactly halfway between t equals 6 and t equals 12. Here's t equals 9. All right, so we're going to draw a triangle. Now, the way that we draw a triangle, the hypotenuse of the triangle is always going to be like the radius of our circle. Okay? Now, we know the radius of our circle is 3 because the diameter is 6. Right, okay, so that's the hypotenuse of your triangle. Okay? Then you can draw the legs of your triangle, making it a right triangle. All right, so what kind of triangle is this? Because t equals 9 is exactly halfway between 12 and 6, let me draw another circle here. Here's 12 and here's 6. And if we were to draw this angle, that's a 90-degree angle because it's a quarter turn. And if we're exactly halfway at 9, we know that the angle made here is 45 degrees. So this is actually a 45, 45, 90-degree triangle. So my next question to you is, how long are the legs of this triangle? Okay, so we can use the idea from the previous screen, and we know that because it's a 45, 45, 90, our shortcut would be to divide it by 2 and attach a root 2. So then the question is, how high is the gum? The gum is this red point here from the ground at t equals 9 seconds. So we want to find this height. So what do you think that height is? All right, so what we do know is up to the center, right? This is kind of like our, whoops, here. This is kind of like our center line here. And this, this from the bottom to the center would be your radius. And the radius is 3, right? That makes sense? Here from the center down, that would be 3. And then we have an additional height, which is the side of our right triangle. So that's 1.5 root 2. And so the height at t equals 9, the height equals the sum of 1.5 root 2 and 3. And you can't add those numbers together because one has a root 2 and one doesn't. This is inches. And the height of the gum is 1.5 root 2 plus 3 inches. All right, let's do another one. So let's find the height at time equals 21. So at t equals 21, I'm going to redraw our circle here. And put in our key time. And these are times, not heights. And t equals 21, notice it's exactly halfway between 18 and 24, right? It's 3 seconds from 21 to 18, and it's 3 seconds from 21 to 24. So this is t equals 21. Here's the center of our circle. Between 18 and 24, that's a quarter turn. That would be a right angle. So if we draw from the center to our gum, that was the line here. If we draw from the center to the gum, we know that's creating a 45-degree angle. Now you could put the 45 on either half. I always like to make my triangle go towards the center line. If you think of this sort of as your center line here, I like to draw my triangle up to the center line, but it works either way. So I'm going to draw my triangle up to the center line. Hypotenuse of the triangle is the radius of the circle. And again, because the diameter, we know that the radius is 3. And just like we did earlier, then the sides of the triangle are 1.5 root 2. So now my question is, how far is the gum from the ground? Here's the gum. Here's the ground. It's supposed to be touching the ground here. Okay. So here's the gum at this height. The question is, what is this height? We know from the center down to the ground, that's the radius of the circle, that's 3. And we know that from the center to the gum, that has a height of 1.5 root 2. So the question mark, what's remaining, would be 3 minus 1.5 root 2. So at t equals 21, the height is 3 minus 1.5 root 2. Notice the height is going to be the radius, which is 3 here, plus or minus the leg of the triangle, depending on if the triangle is above the center or if the triangle is below the center. All right, finally, our last one is find the height of the gum at t equals 42. Now, t equals 42 is more than 24 seconds. So we have to first locate that on our circle. So what time would the gum have the same height as it would at t equals 42 if you want to pick a time between 0 and 24 seconds? So, and we know that this is 0, this is 6, this is 12, this is 18, and this is 24. Again, the question is, where would t equals 42 fall if it was, if we wanted to pick a time between 0 and 24 seconds? Well, we know that every 24 seconds it makes a full rotation. So if we take 42 and subtract 24, it should go back to the same place that it is at 42. That's 18 seconds. So at 42 seconds, it's the same height as it would be at 18 seconds. So here's our gum right here. We want to find this height. So what do you think that height is? Hopefully you didn't make this too hard for yourself. Notice that height is exactly like the height of the center, right? And so that height, if we look, the radius is 3. So that height is 3 there. So at t equals 2, we know that the height is 3 inches.